What's the most vulnerable for a small business? A website, an email? As a company, what should we worry about first?
Your home Wi-Fi setup.
So today we have cybersecurity expert Alan Silberberg. He's the founder and CEO of Digijaks. It's a concierge cybersecurity and reputation security service. Alan is a go-to when an executive or a business owner finds their reputation under attack by anonymous hackers. He's the first person I reach out to when a client is in distress. So how have you been doing, Alan?
I'm great, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me on this today.
So cyber attacks are on the rise. Why is that and how?
Well, the why is partly like the natural evolution of our society into this digital world where everything is digital. The more that anything in our lives becomes digital, the more uh, something called an attack surface area exists, which is how attackers know how to probe and go after things. So the more screens and the more devices, the more platforms, software, et cetera, that all of us are using, whether it's as an individual or 100,000 person corporation, those layers of digital tools also add layers of hacking potential to bad actors. And I think that the other part of it is that the rapid uh, transformation of our society with AI and how AI has now made it so that certain types of information that used to be hard to find is now almost immediately accessible at your fingertips, often without even having to pay for it. That also has completely changed the dynamics now of what the largest companies and governments in the world are facing, as well as individuals, high-profile people, and regular mom and pop businesses. And also sometimes, unfortunately, and more so, there's a physical crossover effect where uh, someone who's having something going on online may also have something happen in real life. Their house gets broken into, or someone tries to go after their safe deposit, but whatever it is, that once someone knows that there's like a money there, or there's documents, or there's data or something, it becomes a target.
You say that AI tools now define how a company or brand is seen. How does that work?
We've all seen it. Like if you were in search, if you're in any of the major search engines, and you do a search for practically anything, there are some exceptions. What you see first now, almost always, and sometimes ahead of the sponsored placements of ads and things like that, is actually this sort of generative AI summary. And you see it scroll out in front of you as you're searching for something. Um, that's a whole new playing field, okay? And it's related to SEO, but it's really its own thing altogether. And if companies are not focused on that aspect of their outbound communications, what happens is the generative AI just will write whatever it wants to write until basically it's being told otherwise, essentially. And so if there's incorrect information out there, or if your competitors are using that tool but you're not, what's going to happen is they're going to just edge you out of that whole thing. So if let's say someone's holding their phone and they do an oral search by talking into it, the first response that they're going to get is going to be the AI response, not the vertical search response. So what that means is when you can take control over that piece of the AI universe for your brand or your company or your government agency or whatever it is, then you've already kind of completed maybe 95% of what you need to do in terms of messaging and controlling what's in someone's mind about a certain set of words or an event or a person.
Well, you just made a very strong case for public relations, as you know, because we work
I
hand in
did.
hand, right, with our clients. I had a 45-minute call with a client of mine's publicly traded company, and all we talked about was this very nature. Who cares about the website? It's really all of the different things that are being done for making sure that AI summary at the top of the page includes you and has the right info, right?
Well, yes, but actually, I would say that you want to include the website also. That ultimately you want to have the generative AI pointing people to your website or pointing to the landing page that So it's not just hanging out there in generative AI with no place to go. There's a very strong linkage between the content that we all create or don't create, and then what generative AI is saying or not saying about our organization or about our people.
So, what's an AI ready reputation?
I think 99% of the people that we encounter are definitely fall into the not AI ready reputation category. But basically, it would be a person or a business who has taken the effort to not only control content about them online, but also to take proactive efforts to control what the generative AI tools are being said about them, about their business, and in context to any competition that they have. And that is really, really important. And so when someone, a person or a business has taken the time to layer it and start to do these steps, including public relations, including reputation management, but also other things as well. And part of it is just like, what kind of content are you actually putting up and why, where, and then how is that content relating to itself and social media and generative AI and search kind of all at once. And when you make it like that, then it becomes a bit of a organic ecosystem, essentially. And also very defensible. So if someone tries to come after you, you already have a set of tools ready to go to start to defend your reputation immediately, instead of having to run and put something together, contact me or you or whatever, and then spend a few weeks trying to play catch up.
I think that's something that we could be talking with our clients more about is preparation. We do that for crisis management, but I don't think in our crisis management we talk about it from an online reputation or what we should be doing.
Well, in a way, it's a little bit like AI crisis management, okay? Because we could all have crises in our lives and our businesses. AI could create a fake crisis for you that's completely fake, and then you already have a real crisis right away in real life dealing with the fake crisis. So yeah, I actually think that this AI generation that we're in now, I think the most important takeaway for the largest businesses and smallest individual sort of organizations is to be prepared, but not to be prepared in sort of a planning perspective, like, oh, what are we going to do 2 years from now? Rather, what did we do yesterday? Because that's how fast all this is happening.
What's the most vulnerable for a small business? A website, an email? As a company, what should we worry about first?
Your home Wi-Fi setup. The reason for that is
Tell me.
yes, because even at the largest companies, people will go home and have fairly lazy attitudes towards their own security because they believe they're safer at home. No one's going to come after them. At smaller companies where they maybe don't have a cybersecurity person or a team, the only briefings they're getting are some sort of once every 6 month kind of training. They go home and they close the door and they open the door at home, and then so unless they've already taken steps to lock down their home Wi-Fi, changing the password, changing the default settings to some new name for the hotspot, right away, you've just created this huge opening for anyone to come after you. Basically, all they need to know is where you live. So that's really number one. Number two is traveling, and people who are so busy that they're juggling their 2 businesses. They have 5 employees and 1 bookkeeper and a half-time lawyer, and so they're juggling everything. They have 2 or 3 devices, 2 or 3 phones, 2 or 3 computers. They travel, something gets lost, something gets broken. They log on to hotel Wi-Fi, or they log on to Starbucks Wi-Fi because they have to in the rush, without thinking about, well, maybe I should be using a VPN, or maybe I should simply never use public Wi-Fi ever, unless it's like for an emergency. But a lot of small businesses do run the risk of giving up their entire IP exposure and their competitive plans simply by an employee logging in at a hotel Wi-Fi or a Starbucks. The smaller businesses often don't have any type of internal team advising their executives how to travel safely or how to be safe. And then I think the third one is I guess, a lot of smaller businesses will have their whole business hooked up to their website. A lot of bigger businesses tend to have a website kind of as a brochure, and then their email and other operations are in another server, another building, another. But smaller businesses will tend to bring all that together. And so that often becomes both a hacking a risk and also a reputation risk as well. Where both basically you get hacked and your reputation gets smeared at once, because everything's all there. Your emails, your data is all connected to the website because they have a portal, they had a CRM that wasn't maintained correctly. And then a lot of small businesses, frankly, don't have the budget they'll build a website or they'll build their own network tech stuff. And then they have maybe one person managing it on a part-time basis who's not really dedicated to anything other than managing that network. And I'm not saying anything bad about people, but what that does is that sets up the recipe for a sophisticated attacker to start to survey these smaller businesses and figure out who does have defenses, who does have people, who is set up correctly and who isn't.
Wow. So should we all have policies and we tell our employees never get on another network?
I think it depends on your business, okay? I mean, partly, right? If you're in the business, if you're in the hardware business, maybe not, it's not as critical. But if you're dealing with people's lives and people's information and healthcare data or financial data, the type of information that we see a lot in terms of our businesses, which is often very confidential, private information, you should be super worried. Whether or not you should say 100% never, I think there are obviously sometimes when you do have to, but it should always be with a VPN or some other set of controls where you're controlling it. And then also a lot of smaller businesses don't have any type of control of what data is available when their employees are traveling. So in other words, what do you have access to from your network that you could, if you were in a Starbucks or a hotel, that someone else could see? So part of the policy might be simply limiting what someone can see from the road.
It's frightening to have your laptop in your room and you're signing into that hotel and you think somebody randomly could just find us, right? And find my company and
not just
not even
find you,
trying.
but in these open Wi-Fi setups, there are scanners and things called sniffers, where someone could literally sit in the lobby and pretend like they're working, okay, and basically suck up all the passwords and email combinations being used on that open Wi-Fi network. So if there were 100 people signing into things at once, someone with the right kind of software could be in the lobby and basically collect all of those passwords and email addresses associated with them.
Yeah, it sounds like a good scene for a movie. You walk in and everybody in the lobby is on a laptop.
Yeah.
Identify
The
the
right one.
person.
Yeah.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's real life plus movie. Like, this is a situation where both Hollywood and real life are kind of showing us how bad it can be.
Well, to simplify, what are the 3 steps we can all take to protect and strengthen our digital reputations?
Well, one is awareness. Okay. Number one, simply like start Googling yourself, start using Bing and DuckDuckGo and the other search engines, and realize what is it that people are saying about you? How are you perceived? What do you look like, to start with? Because if you can't start from that, then when something happens, it's hard to say, well, here's how it wrecked me or here's how it destroyed me. It's really hard to guide. The second thing is start really thinking very critically about social media use. The social media use nowadays reflects us all basically as an external part of our character. So it's all findable. It's all traceable. It doesn't take someone like me very long to put together an entire social media trail of a single person. So you have to be cautious of what are you posting, what kinds of images of your family, what kind of images of where you are. We tell our clients constantly to think of Instagram like latergram, and never post live. Don't ever post with their geolocation turned on. Don't give away clues where you actually are. If you were in Milan, Italy last week, well, post about it this week. You don't have to post about it while you're in Milan, Italy. Post about it while you're home. Never, ever, ever take pictures of your home. Be like, oh, we're about to leave on 2-week vacation, and then post it on Facebook. That is an immediate, invitation to have your house get robbed. I mean, you're laughing, but unfortunately, this is what happens in
Well,
our society
it's
now.
it
And
seems obvious, but yes, you're
yeah,
not thinking.
yeah.
You're living in that Instagram moment.
And then the third thing is, depending on what kind of device you have or what kind of combination of devices you're using for your family, it's really important to lock down as many of the security and privacy settings on those devices as you possibly can. Put two-factor authentication on every single account, every single device. Never turn on your phone without having to use two-factor authentication. Never sign into anything, email, healthcare, banking, anything that's important without two-factor authentication. Because right away, that two-factor authentication step does eliminate a huge chunk of the potential threat.
Mm.
So I think those three things concisely, something that we can all do.
Well, this leads me to the most important question, which is it sounds like we all need a cybersecurity expert we can trust. So, how do we find one, Alan? Do we go to the yellow pages? How do we find another
Well, I
Alan?
think if you go to the yellow pages, you might end up dealing with some North Korean or Chinese hackers um, posing as, a local cybersecurity company. Yeah, our website is www.digijaks.com, so digijaks.com. Clients often come to us through law firms or business management firms, but that's not the only way, as you know. And we are,
So, referrals, you're saying that one of the best ways to find a person like you or
yeah,
you is
yeah.
to talk to attorneys, you need referrals from trusted sources
Yeah,
like
so
that.
your attorney, maybe a smart insurance person, maybe a smart banker, they're depending on what you're doing in your life and who your kind of go-to person is. Start there, because often those people will actually know of someone like myself, or not. Um, but I think for a lot of people, the first step, honestly, is to just put your own fear aside for a second and start to think rationally about your situation. And then, like, okay, what do I need? I need a cybersecurity expert. Do I need a company with 50 people that's going to bill me $250,000 a month? Or do I need something that's more nimble and boutique and concierge? So I think it really depends on what people need.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Alan Silberberg, a great pleasure as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I also love watching these videos. I think that you do a fantastic job at interviewing people.
Thanks.